Welcome to Not inShawScope, the monthly podcast where we take all of the interesting films that are related to the films that we do on the inShawScope podcast and talk about them. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that seems reasonable.
Yes, I have no arguments.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we're still on the White films.
Yes.
This is our third episode. So we did one inShawScope and one not inShawScope. So at this point, how many have we watched up till now? Like 5, 6?
More, I think, because we did 2 for Shaw and 4 here. I can't remember how many.
So
I
6.
think we did a cluster, so 10 maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I was thinking we've done 6 up until this moment.
Yeah.
And so I would advise you to go and watch the inShawScope and potentially the not, because we're kind of dealing with this chronologically as well. So yeah, go watch them. Yeah. So we don't have to tell you the plot again.
Right.
It takes time.
Right.
Yeah, if you want the bare bones of the Whitesnake template that all these films are based on, go and listen to inShawScope.
Yeah.
On Madam Whitesnake.
Because we totally knew what we were talking about in terms of
we nailed that. Yeah.
Worth mentioning, actually, just before we get ahead of it, is it has been quite interesting to watch so many variations on the story, and kind of surprising how I haven't got tired of the story after watching 10 films. Like,
yes, I agree. I think like
probably watch another 10, maybe not straight away, but
yeah,
I probably could watch.
It's a solid myth.
One of the long TV series. If someone were to recommend a good one, I would sit down with the TV series.
Yeah, I did actually come across a TV series that's on Amazon Prime in the UK anyway.
Oh, okay.
Whitesnake related. I think it's from like the mid-20s, like 2015 or something. I think.
Right.
I haven't got the name written down or anything because I'm not that organised.
No, that you've gone that far is impressive.
Well, yes. So,
and I think that these 4 are interesting because I think there is really a through line we start to see with adjustments being made to the myth that kind of, in a way, to me, start with the first one we're going to talk about. Yeah. Certain things get bent a little bit, and that those things show up then in most of the versions we watch after.
Yeah, for sure. So, films we are discussing today, we are going to do from Taiwan in 1978. We're going to do Love of Whitesnake. Then we are hopping over back to Hong Kong for the very, very writhy GreenSnake from 1993. Then we're heading over to Neon Hong Kong of 2000 for PhantomOfSnake. And then we are bringing it almost up to date with Grumpy Jet Li from 2011's SorcererAndTheWhiteSnake.
There has been a few since as well. I almost chucked in another mainland one from 2019, but we didn't do the. I think this is probably enough to be getting along.
I think with one, not even an exception really, but with almost an exception, this is a nice, interesting bunch to talk about. Because I had fun with all of them.
I've certainly got things to say about all of them. Let's put it that way.
I did. I will say I did quite enjoy 3 out of 4. One was more of a struggle, but it did really beg the question because I know far less about Chinese cinema than you two do. What is the dividing line? When do we pass this Rubicon into just like CGI nonsense? Like is there around a year or a decade where we just kind of like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. It's going to be a lot of this.
Well, if you look at GreenSnake, there's actually a bit of CGI in that, and that's
yes,
super.
Yeah.
CGI, yeah, and you can tell.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying though.
Yeah, I actually think that the Rubicon is Storm Riders.
Okay.
Yeah, it might
When is Storm Riders? 96, 97?
around there, yeah, 97, 98 maybe.
That seems to be like the big blockbuster that made everything CGI.
Yeah, that's when it started to become totally like without any weight or heft, or things start to feel like they exist in a non-real, like no connection to any physical reality, and even
almost
those are restrained compared to the likes of Sorcerer and the Whitesnake in terms of just percentage of on-screen stuff which is real, right? There's
starting to feel very much like cutscenes from a video game, right? That's yeah. Okay.
Anyway, grumpy old men will get there.
Yeah. Luckily, we start with 1978. So
and you can't hear the words. Bass is too loud. Is that a man or a woman?
Policemen are getting younger every day. Oh, I was out doing my shopping, and I thought it was a youngster in costume for Halloween.
And you know, nothing against them, but some of them are even doctors now.
Well, I know.
I went to one the other day, and he was like the ace of spades. He was, I tell you. Just
silence for that one, I think.
Yep. That's the correct response. So
I was referring to Motorhead, of course.
Oh yes, yeah. It is weird when your doctor has the hand.
Yeah, they were shaped like that. It was a really funny shaped man, wasn't it?
Yeah. Actual playing cards are being doctors. Amazing.
Yeah. Right, moving on. We're going to talk about Love of Whitesnake.
We are.
Starring
Love of the Whitesnake.
Oh, sorry, Love of the Whitesnake.
Yes.
Not the. The Whitesnake.
What do you want about?
I can be pedantic.
That's not pedantic. That's the title.
You sure it's not Love of the?
Love of the snake, or it's Love of the Whitesnake. It's quite simple, Darren.
For some.
Okay.
Stubborn, isn't he? Stubborn is.
First films. I've never seen first films before. Do they do a lot of other stuff?
Quality.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
First film. Although I do wonder. So we'll get into this a little bit. I don't know if you'll do this first but where exactly this film comes from is slightly confusing. I noticed you did mention in the intro, you referred to it as a Taiwanese film, which I was quite pleased you did, because I think Taiwan Korean co-production, but certainly not Hong Kong.
Definitely not Hong Kong. Well, the presence of Bridget Lin in 1978 tends to tell you it's Taiwan anyway, I think.
Right. Where there's a number of, do we want to talk about this first, or seeing as, let's get into it then. Right. Yeah. So on the Hong Kong movie database, it's just a Hong Kong film, right? But I think on the Hong Kong movie database, I think the default is Hong Kong unless someone says otherwise, right? So, but while watching it, as I'm sure occurred to both of you as well, it was like, okay, this is because so last time we talked about Snake Woman's marriage, right? Which took it out of the studio, and this does the same. You could say Snake Woman's marriage is a bit of a dry run, because this is probably a better film than Snake Woman's.
Yeah, I think so.
Was. So it's out on locations, and the locations are not the new territories or anything like that. And I couldn't quite figure out whether it's either Taiwan or it's Korea, right? And then in the Hong Kong movie credits, they credit now. So this is confusing, right? So they credit Cho Dong Jun, who's definitely Korean. And so I was thinking, okay, I'll go over to the Korean movie database and check if it's over there. And it is over there. And also there's a few Korean people in it who aren't listed over at the Hong Kong Movie Database. So it is at least a Korean co-production, and I think, but I'm not sure if it was filmed in Korea or Taiwan or both.
Mm-hmm.
And then also over at the Korean Movie Database, confusingly, they have 2 directors credited. So they have Cho Dang-jun and they have Lee Han-shang, who we've talked about before, right? Enchanting Shadow, you know, big time fucking director.
This is not Lee Han-xiang.
Well, they have him as a co-director. Cho Dang-jun, less impressively, the director of Jackie and Bruce to the Rescue.
Yeah, I'm checking this myself. No, not that I don't believe you.
And then, just to confuse things further, on the Hong Kong Movie Database, they also have a credit for executive director, which sometimes is like an overseen. And this is Chen Chi-hua, who was making Jackie Chan films like Snake and Crane Arts of Shaolin and Half a Loaf of Kung Fu around this time, which were, well, Snake and Crane Arts, I think, was shot in Korea, then Half a Loaf was, anyway, those 2 films were shot in Taiwan and Korea, rather. So,
and so IMDb also has 2 directors, and they have Chen listed as one of them, and then the other one is, I don't even know how to say it, K-E-K Sema, S-Z-E-M-A.
Well, no, that's right. Yes, sorry, that one as well, who was also the screenwriter, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, there's 2 over the Hong Kong Movie Database, Cho Dang-jun and Sima K was the screenwriter. You go over to the Korean Movie Database, they got Lee Han-shang, and then executive director also is Chen Chi-hua. So this potentially has
3 directors?
Or 4.
Okay.
If you're looking for it over the Korean Movie Database as well, it's under the title Story of Whitesnake.
Hang on, I've just gone into Cho Dong-jun, and he's the assistant director on Ninja vs Shaolin Guards.
He was, yes, which was shot in Korea.
It was, with the temples, yeah. Which is one of the finest kung fu films ever made, by the way.
So I think maybe what we can say with great authority is this film was made in Asia by Asians.
Mm-hmm.
Bang on, Clive.
Yes.
Seems to have more than 1 director.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would have had some sort of connection to Taiwan because Bridget Lin is in it, and it's early.
Yeah. And just to how nerdy I am, I loved finding all that out. That was like,
I quite liked first films like Fanfare, their version of the Shaw thing, because it kind of sounds like, it kind of has like a na 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 na. It has a taunting quality that's missing from the Shaw.
the film.
First film is always a treat to watch.
Okay, good to know.
But because of the slightly complicated, I'm not sure if it's like the production company or the distribution company. I guess I don't know. But no, you're quite right. First films is, you perk up. It's like seeing, seasonal or Gold Dig or something like that.
Yeah. Because Wang Yu did a lot for first films as well.
Right.
It's always nice to see a Wang Yu first films.
Okay.
We'll get to Wang Yu in about 10 years at this fucking rate.
Yeah.
So carry on then, Darren. Now that we, not exactly sorted out, but we at least arranged the jigsaw puzzles in front of us and have yet to get together. But,
yeah. Now, I have to embarrass myself slightly on this one. I have.
You're not gonna shit yourself, are you?
Well, no, I've done that already.
Right.
My diet.
I can see the flies around you. I was wondering why.
Yeah. I have to embarrass myself slightly in that this is the only one I haven't written down any of the cast apart from Bridget Lin.
Oh, okay.
So Bridget Lin's in it, which is all that matters.
Playing Whitesnake, yep. There's a Charlie Chin playing our usual male lead, right? You know,
Chin Min is GreenSnake.
There you go.
Yep, they're both cute in this one. I have to say, I personally quite fancied both White and GreenSnake in this version.
Yeah, there's good casting going on here.
The first of the meddling priests is is Lee Kwan, right? Who'll pop up again today when we talk. Oh no, hang on, that might be a different show. Where does anyway? So, but curiously, in this version, it's passed off. There's like two meddling priests, right? So it starts off Lee Kwan.
There's like the Taoist, and then there's
and then they introduce the
old dude, and this is a Korean actor. This is Lee Yae Sung,
who is giving off Kam Kong from Master of the Flying Guillotine vibes,
right? Yeah, agreed. And like we said, it's all real locations as well, and they've pulled it off here. Even though they use there's some element. I'm wondering how much of it Snake Woman's marriage was actually a dry run for this, because there's a lot of things in common with like the puppets, and stuff like that.
Puppet snakes, yeah.
And whereas it looked a bit, I mean, it's kind of enjoyable, but it looked a bit cheap and silly in Snake Woman, which also had more martial arts and stuff. In this version, it seems I thought it worked. It worked a lot. It didn't look cheap. It looked more dreamlike, or you know,
they could just about pull it off.
Good world building.
So anyone else notable in the cast?
There were a few names. Grace Chen is the goddess of mercy, isn't she? Who allow. So in this, so it's interesting. We'll talk about the differences. So in this one as well, I noticed at the very beginning of the film. So in previous versions, we did get a bit of a sense that in previous lifetimes, the scholar had saved her, put her back in the river, and then she meets him again. But it always seemed to be by chance, right? But in this version, at the very beginning, Bridget Lynn's character, GreenSnake, says something like, "Oh, I'm on the lookout for that guy who rescued me when I was a snake." Which is kind of interesting. And then the other thing, we were talking about things that recur in other. I think this is the first time that GreenSnake, GreenSnake, sorry, not Bridget Lynn is Whitesnake. GreenSnake is kind of quite a petulant, jealous GreenSnake. Right?
Yes, the idea that she's the fight, like, so that Whitesnake is 1,000 years old and has reached a certain level of enlightenment, and then GreenSnake is half the age of 500 and is still quite feisty and like a teenager in a way.
Yes. And they go to the goddess of mercy and they ask permission to go on holiday, which it's funny watching all these versions as well. It's like you can make a composite where the whole story kind of makes sense, where you don't get from just watching one film.
Definitely.
So watching one, it makes sense, because then when you watch the version we watched before, where it was suddenly imperative that they don't overstay their time on Earth and come back, it makes sense now, because in this version they've been given a deadline. Whereas we didn't necessarily see that be given before. So it's odd how you have to watch them all to get the story. No, it's like they're all complicit, right? You tell this bit.
But there is a novel of this. There's an old novel.
Yes.
None of us has read, presumably.
No, they've picked. Well, it's difficult to find the. I don't think there is like a Bram Stoker or a Mary Shelley all in one kind
definitive version.
But that goes back to what I'm saying. It's a really, really nebulous.
Yes.
It's not myth.
Yes.
There's a nebulous story, isn't it?
I think it is. I think this counts as a myth. I think it does.
I love that this is the first version that has an umbrella buying scene. In every version, our scholar has already had an umbrella that he could pass those, but this one they stopped it. No, we're going to see him buy an umbrella that he
Well,
can then later.
more than that, he's someone almost forces an umbrella on him.
Yes,
Oh, you buy this umbrella, young man, and he's like, "Oh, there's no way. I never know." And it's almost as if you get the feeling that fate is kind of conspiring right through this umbrella salesman, this woman.
Yes. And GreenSnake is like the best wing woman of all time in this version. Like she does everything possible to like she physically literally pushes him into Whitesnake multiple times. And then when she's the one who brings the rain on and like clearly ruins a whole bunch of other people's days, you know, but she's like, no, I'm going to make this happen for my lady. And yeah, so she basically, and I also like, so that thing, like in the earlier versions we watched of this, there was this element of like, ooh, what's going on? Is this magic? You know, in this version, it's always front and center that like, oh yeah, we're gonna magic up this house, and now I'm gonna use magic to do this.
Or it's like those hand signal things that they do.
Is this the first one as well, I think, that we've seen so far where when he goes to the opulent, mysterious, illusory mansion, that they summon up servants as well?
Yes,
right?
out of
so, yeah.
Flowers or something. I'm trying to remember what they do.
Like a leaf and a stone, I think, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And also like the silver tails that play a big role in some of the other versions we saw show up very early in this version too. Yeah. And it's more like that kind of in Japan they have this kind of like fairy like tanuki magic of turning leaves into money and stuff. And so GreenSnake turns these stones into money
with the doing.
Yes, yeah. The ridiculous comedy sting of the guy jumping backwards into the water when he realizes the money's turned back to a stone.
When the silver tails turn into whatever, they looked like they might have turned into dung, actually. They
turds, that might have made sense why he jumped backwards into the water.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing that marks this one for me, more so than any other one we're going to watch or have watched, actually, is this one is a lot more played for laughs.
It's quite light-hearted, isn't it? Because it
is. Yeah. So it's not the comedy. Yeah. But there's a lot of comedy. There's a lot more comedy moments.
Yeah. I the only one that was more comedic, I think, but again we weren't fully getting it because we didn't have subs, was Snake Woman's Marriage, which again leads me to believe how much dry run Snake Woman's Marriage might have been for.
No, I disagree with that. I think this one's more comedic than that one because this one's got the Taoist priest being bounced up and down on the carpet.
The water spout,
Water spout.
I believe the Taoist priest you're referring to as well, Darren, is referred to by GreenSnake at one point as a bald ass.
Yes, I took note of that too.
As a bald ass myself, I was highly offended by such language.
And this is the first one too where we see this a little bit of a struggle over the scholar, right? So White has a claim to the scholar, but GreenSnake is like, well, you know, could we arrange a situation where you have him 4 days and I have him for 3 days? And that actually does come back, right? Like there is a sense he does kind of get the hump as time goes on as to why you seem to have exclusive rights to this guy. I am
500 years younger than you after all, so I'm a bit more of a catch, maybe. The scholar, I noticed the scholar doesn't get a say in this because I think he would have probably gone along with it. I would have if I was the scholar.
And I did notice too, like there's this scene that happens right around then where like this marriage comes fast and furious more than like in any other version, right? There's like there's the usual demurring of like, well, I'm kind of poor and well, there's no need to wait. We've got money. We can get married today. And he's like, today, but I should tell my sister. Well, then it's off. I don't like any delays. And you're like, whoa. And so then next scene they're married. Like the gaslighting actually in this version is enjoyably over the top.
Yeah, and of course there's the usual reaction to wine and talismans and eventually a flood.
This is the first version where Greenie also pervs on them, like spies on them when they're in bed and stuff like that, and you know, and
also the only version with a proper Hammer style transformation sequence.
Right.
So when she takes the wine, then there's this kind of transformation sequence where someone slapped some greeny white makeup on her and put some contacts in her, and she's half snake. And then
Yes.
she's snake.
I'm thinking how the Hammer theme tune would have gone, right? Because they famously like Dracula said, "Love of the white snake, love of the white snake."
I do like that the Taoist priest has a massive fuck off like yin yang sign. Yeah, that's great.
All the proper Taoist priests do.
Yeah. And then
so there's no confusion. You're not like, oh, are you the milkman? Or you're not quite sure what his
right.
profession is.
I also, my favorite line in the whole movie, Mike, because I wrote this down, as somebody's very excited about the medicine. He's like, it's very efficacious. My diarrhea is gone.
Yeah.
Exclamation point.
Also another one where the well gets poisoned.
I know, yeah, and by the ladies again. So it puts that kind of,
And it's
also that whole gag.
How they pick and choose bits. And it's only when you watch like a few you get the kind of general overview. And I wonder if they're left out sometimes because they assume a familiarity with the text, or it's kind of.
I think that's true later on too. Like when they start playing fast and loose with some of it, I think it's because they assume the traditional version, and now we're gonna play with it.
Yes,
but I also this has all that gag with like doing the Chinese characters on people's hands with that weird sound effect of them painting it on, and then there's the whole wind gag where the guy's able to blast people with wind energy from his hands.
Yeah, that was actually genuinely funny. I thought.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And it was new. That wasn't something that had been in any of the versions we've seen.
The other thing that I quite like about this one actually is that in pretty much all other versions, the kind of the loyalty and the love of the scholar kind of wavers, So he either gets convinced verbally by the priest that she's a white snake and she's a demon, and then he kind of rejects her at some point. But in this one, he is solidly So he is just on Team White Snake, regardless.
Yes. I mean, there is the whole part where he's given the magic papers and he just doesn't use them in this version. He's like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's also one of the more convincing, like, Charlie Chin's a good-looking enough bloke.
Yes, I thought that too. He's one of our best-looking scholars for sure. Yeah. Yes.
We've got the scarf trick. So we've got the you didn't see a snake; it was a scarf trick.
Yes. A bit of the gas. Well, the gaslighting, as I said, that's a consistent theme in many of them. The snake girls are never that honest with him. They also had this is the giant fish you mentioned before, the giant fish that comes out of the river and blasts our priest into the air with a big water spout.
But he's also the one that floods the temple at the end.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, so it's instead of the water just rising, it's this giant fish pile of theirs. You're right. Yeah.
But the thing is, he's not even giant. He's like a big kind of rotund bloke when he's
a pretty big fish.
And he's just a normal sized pup. Huh?
He's a pretty big fish.
I feel like it's a. Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of fish you've got round your way. But...
No, but when he transforms back into a fish from human form, he's like that big. And he still floods the village.
Right. We'll let this pass, I think. But
I'm sold on that. The one thing I didn't understand in this, and I'm hoping that one of you looked into it, because I tried Googling this and I couldn't find anything. So right near the end, when we get into the kind of magic battle between Whitesnake and Paham, he kind of relents on her. So he doesn't give her the full blasting of the Buddhist magic, because she's got a Wen-Chu star in her. Does anyone know what a Wen-Chu star is?
No, I thought it was because she was preggers. I thought that was why he.
Yeah, but it's specifically in the dialogue or the subject.
Okay.
It says Wen-Chu star.
Could that mean zygote?
It could be, yeah.
Like I don't know, but like
They were
but,
in
yeah,
Doctor Who, right?
the zygotes, yeah.
That's it. Revenge of the Zygotes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think Wurzel Gummidge fought them, I'm pretty sure. But yeah. Let's see what else I have to say. Yeah, there is a part near the end where it's like it gets a bit D-Wars, where you've got like dragon versus dragon. That was
it's like this. It's just like this MacGuffin that Whitesnake pulls not quite out of her ass, but out of her hair.
However,
a hairpin is a dragon, isn't she?
However, yeah, I was going to say there is that whole part where I thought for a moment that the scholar was trapped in Fahai's or Fahai, whatever his name is, ass, because he's like sitting on him and he's enclosed within his robes.
Yeah.
That was
that was weird. And but his foot's sticking out, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Kind of been that trapped in the robes.
And then Fahai like farts him like back into the cell somehow. That was all very there was the whole flying Buddhist bead attack. There was lots of like kind of like semi wuxia kind of flying about.
You should see the print that was prepared for New York grindhouses with inserts in the early 80s. That was all made quite explicit.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was.
And then it gets a bit sad at the end, doesn't it? Because we've got the bowl again. So the bowl is a bit of a constant.
Yes. Yep.
So she gets sucked into the bowl, and then sort of says, "Oh, GreenSnake, you have to look after my baby."
Not all versions have this bowl either. And
yeah, the obvious one we watched didn't.
In the Jet Li version, later on we'll talk about it as well, he referred to his little carved out bowl as a pagoda.
Well, no, because he puts people under the pagoda, doesn't he?
No, I understand that, but he says, "Oh, he's in the pagoda." He refers to the thing as a pagoda.
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, so I don't know what that bowl is exactly. Anyway, so Love of the Whitesnake is quite good, isn't it?
Yeah,
I quite like it.
I liked it. I liked it a lot, and it's funny that it does that tonal shift near the end, and it's effective. Like suddenly we do feel quite sad, and you know the scholar shows up, and you're right, Darren. I think because he's so constant in his love for her in this version, we feel more for him when she is.
Yeah, you're completely behind that relationship, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and then when he brings his child to visit mom, who is buried under the thing, it's it is touching. Like it's.
The scene of the film end. Done.
There's also a really harsh scene where somebody just kills a real fish with a spear, or a stick. Like I was like, "Oh,
I wonder how he got it through the fish actually, because there's no spike or point on that stick.
Yeah,
I think they must have carved a hole in this fish, put the pole through it, and
I think he just rammed it through a fish.
Through a fish, yeah.
Anyway, fish is not having a good day.
No.
But also in this one is there's no ambiguity about who the good guys and the bad guys are.
Yes,
so
The priests are all either played for laughs or are just jerks.
Yeah.
And
that's there's no the Whitesnake and GreenSnake are the good guys.
Yeah.
Zhao or Hugh is the good guy, and priesthood they're the baddies. So yeah, that's a good one. We recommend that one, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So we jump forward 15 years to GreenSnake, which a rewatch for me, and probably the first of the Legend of the Whitesnake films I ever saw, actually. So it was quite nice to revisit this now with a bit more knowledge about what it's all about, right?
I mean, it's a load of bollocks.
I haven't seen it, so.
GreenSnake's a load of bollocks.
Oh, you don't like GreenSnake? You don't like GreenSnake?
Yeah.
Oh,
but it's a load of bollocks. I like GreenSnake.
right.
Maggie Cheung and Joey Wong writhe around on each other a fuckload.
They do.
Yes, yes, yes. This is the first one that really leans into the lesbian under or overtones, which are always kind of there, but this one, is the first one that makes it.
No, I'm actually not criticizing it at all when I say it's all bollocks, but it is just
quite interesting. This swung for me. It vacillated between. It's an odd film. I'd be quite keen to actually watch this again one day for a third time, because I remember really enjoying it the first time I saw it, and this time it kind of weirdly vacillated between being really impressive and then, like you said, being a bit bollocksy, time-wasting kind of music video looking, and then that's really, and then that's a very silly looking snake, but it still has this, and then by the time it gets to the end, I mean, it's got real pathos, I think. Very strong kind of.
It has a strong ending.
Anti-clerical message, even more so.
Yeah, because there's no ambiguity about Vincent Zhao's character at all.
No, but also there's a little bit. It's not just black and white though, because especially the GreenSnake character has become incredibly embittered by the end as well, right? So she's kind of been turned into a villain.
She hates humans for fairly good reason.
Right. So this is, I found this one really, really fascinating. So this is a Choi Hak. So this is interesting. So this is a Choi Hak film, made seemingly as a co-production between his film workshop and Ungsian Seasonal. We mentioned Seasonal earlier. So there's a strange film workshop season. I don't quite know why Seasonal, because Choi Hak went and did his own thing via film workshop enough times. I'm not quite sure what Seasonal brought to the park.
Well, it's weird as well, because it's like the film workshop logo is very different looking. It's almost as if it's at the budget end of the film workshop. It's not
right.
It's a reasonably lavish production. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of, it seems like some sort of side project kind of thing for film workshop, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so the other interesting cred is so the choreography is by Yen Bun and Tong Kai, right? Chang Chen. And what's interesting about that is, as far as I could tell, he more or less retired after Opie and the Kung Fu Master back in 1984.
Yeah.
He's only got 2 other credits that I could find post, which is this, and then as an actor in Just Heroes, which was, but that was kind of like that was one of those that was one of those what do they call it, like charity films, wasn't it? Just
charity project.
Yeah. So I get that, but so I'm not quite sure why he was coaxed out of retirement to work on this one.
Yeah, I'm front and center, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fucking huge fan of Tong Kai Tang Chia, right? Massive fan, and Yin Bun does a hell of a good job on the other stuff that he does. But the natural comparison when you're talking about sort of, flowing robes, fantasy wuxia action, right? Particularly when it's got Choi Hak's name on it, is a Chinese ghost story. Right? And they're not up to the job that Ching Su Dong is doing in something that was 6 years before this. And it is kind of on a Chinese ghost story template.
Right.
Well,
it's odd. It's almost the only thing I would say to that. I agree with you. I know what you're saying, but I'm wondering how much of it. It seems almost that it does have a slightly different agenda. This film, though, right? I'm not quite sure how much they're invested in delivering that sort of action, because there's not much in the way of those action set pieces, right?
Well, yeah, but when they're there, they seem kind of stilted, and you know, it probably tells us how much the industry moved on since Opium and the Kung Fu Master.
Yes, I suppose that could. Yeah,
You
you could take it that.
and you know, Tang Jia's a bit of a fish out of water.
Mm.
Now that everyone's flying about on Once Upon a Time in China wires and not Shaw Brothers wires.
Right. Yuen Bun as well, speaking of Once Upon a Time in China, had just directed Once Upon a Time in China 4, right? With Vincent Zhao, who took over from Jet Li after 33, who is our meddling monk.
Yeah,
I'm
doing a fucking bang-up job as well.
Yeah. I appreciated him more over, because I think both of us, I'm not sure about you, Nick, but both of us, for sure, Darren, when he took over from Jet Li, he suffered from the comparison, not necessarily in terms of him, but the films. The films that he were in were lesser Once Upon a Time in China films.
Yeah.
So I think we were always a bit dismissive unfairly of Vincent Zhao.
I've definitely I completely agree with you, and I was very dismissive of Vincent Zhao back in the day. But you know, and it is retrospective because he's kind of the only proper, you know, kind of him, Donnie Yen, Jackie Chan. They're kind of the only proper performers working today, really.
Yes.
And
no, go on.
And he always does a bang-up job.
Yeah. And we should mention as well, just, I don't think we said it explicitly. So yeah, Joey Wong is Whitesnake, Maggie Cheung is Joey Wong as well, seeming like in some. So the scholar is played by Wu Xing Guo from Rock and Roll Cop and What Price Survival, and some of the scenes where she's like with him and she's like at her, she almost seems like, because you don't see anything explicit. It's a sensual film as opposed to a sexual film, right? There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of writhing about and wiggling and stuff. But there's scenes where she's like just with him, like eating, or she looks like she's stepped out of an orgy or something. She's like, her eyes are just like fucking, like she's like totally satiated and she's just on another level.
This film is the first one that really leans into the snakiness. Like there's a wonderful scene later on where they get real. Well, they're first of all, like, they're complaining about having to walk places, and they're late. They're kind of lazy and tired. And then later on,
because they can't walk properly, though, they're doing the extreme side to side walk, which causes a bunch of men watching to fall in the river.
Yes. Which is a thing that'll be picked up.
The pipe going.
Yes. The only thing missing, I think, was a man taking a drink of something and then looking over and going and throwing his bottle.
And we'll see some of that actually in the next one we're going to talk about as well. But I was going to say that like that there's the part where it gets to be winter and then they get real lazy and tired because like they're reptiles and it's not a good time to be a reptile.
That was a new one. I like that.
Yeah. They did much more of that. And then also this is the first one where like they have their tongues flicking out and they're catching flies and rats and stuff. So yeah, I appreciated that was a new wrinkle in this kind of story.
GreenSnake is at her most kind of reckless and not in control of herself at all.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to highlight as well, just to call about, just because they do such the world building in this film is extraordinary. So I'd like to single out cinematography, Q Lam, and I guess art director, what was his name? Bill Louis, because the film looks
it's gorgeous.
Nice,
HD. And that whole opening scene, like whatever the hell it is, Fellini nightmare thing.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about this. How does do you think this might be what is inside that bowl thing? Because you've got these pig faced.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like a hellscape thing.
Yeah,
like
pig
sky
face.
It's all like dog faced monsters.
Yeah, typing little people. You know.
And lots of naked, but it seems to be like they're, oddly enough though, it's where they come from, right? And then they drop down into this party where there's some Indian dancers and this is one.
I like that bit.
See, that's one of the bits I didn't. There's a few bits like that, which is where it turns into like a music video, and those are the bits I can kind of live without a little bit. But they're few and far between. But they do interrupt the narrative for me every now and again.
No, I like that. I like them. I thought they brought something to it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it either. But this is also one of the first versions, and this really shows up in the Jet Li version, where we start to see the monk as like Peter Venkman of the Ghostbusters, like going around and be like, "Ooh, that's a spider demon. I'm gonna catch him." And like it opens up this other kind of wider pantheon of like demonic forces, and he's wandering around trying to like catch them all.
Grumpy Jet Li.
Great cameo by Tian Feng as Spider Demon.
Well, so here's an interesting one as well. Again, talking later Grumpy Jet Li film, another connection, so I'm guessing it must be in the source somewhere, is they both do that picking up the pagoda thing. But
yes.
But later on, it's white. But this time he picks up the pagoda and there's a 1,000-year-old spider under there.
Yeah, he puts the spider in there.
No, he takes the spider out.
Yeah, he lets the spider out. That's part of his journey. Isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting. So the spider, it's the spider like the snake that it was someone who tried to become a human after 1,000.
Yes, that it's evolved to a point where, you know,
But it's interesting, the whole specifically under the pagoda thing though, it's only in this version and it's only in the Jet Li version, right? We haven't seen the hiding where the spider or snake or anything. We haven't seen the lifting of the pagoda in any other versions, right?
Although they are in some of them they are put under the pagoda, so that's just, I'm guessing that's just a shorthand for the priest putting them trapping them under the pagoda,
right?
It's specifically under the pagoda, not in the pagoda, isn't it?
When they go as well to when they go to get the herb as well, there's always a bit where they have to go and get the herb. There's
which is a mushroom. I noticed in both versions, both like actually we didn't mention it, but that obviously plays out in every version we've seen. But in these versions, it is the mushroom, and it's made into the tea, which apparently is actually a proper heart medication.
They mention the magic crane as well, which you don't see much of, but that because there was a magic crane film around this time as well as another Choi Hark produced thing. I'm wondering if I didn't have a chance to re-watch Magic Crane, but I'm wondering if it could be considered a bit of a companion.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a good sequence. I quite like that sequence. And what I like, again, this is what I'm saying about it being on the kind of Chinese ghost story template, is there's quite a lot of flying around in this film.
Yeah.
In most of the other films we've seen, admittedly, they're a lot earlier period. You know, people either hop on a cloud or just ding appear in heaven or whatever. But in this, you know, Fahan flies about.
Yes.
You know, the snakes fly around with billowing robes and all that. They don't do it as well as Jing Zudong does in Chinese Ghost Story.
Right.
Coming back to my previous point on a previous not inShawScope, is this film is why Choi Hark didn't direct Chinese Ghost Story.
Right.
Because Jing Zudong is missing.
Yes.
Jing Zudong is missing from this film.
Yes.
And it's a completely different aesthetic. And it's a completely different feel. Yeah. And in fact, it's like there's a gaping hole that should be Jing Zudong in the choreography that is in this film.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing as well in this version, so when they do the whole the house turns out to be an illusion and it's actually a dilapidated old mansion thing, they really leaned on that in a way that it reminded, because I'd forgotten that this and maybe some other things as well. But this is also the way this has leaked down through other kind of myths and things over the years. Bits of this, especially the you know, the mansion or lover that turns out to have been long dead or whatever. It's, I think, if I remember correctly in my research, it's from this it dripped into the stuff that they wrote about in Ugetsu Monogatari, right? Which we Tales of Moonlight and Rain, which we did.
Yes.
Spec and the film version. So those scenes is interesting how it borrowed back in a way. Those scenes felt very much influenced by the 1950s Ugetsu Monogatari film. Right. Even though the original inspiration would have been the other way around. So it's kind of interesting how these things trickle down and
Pan Asian influence.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed is that this version, and then is taken up by Jet Li's grumpy old, monk, this is the first version that we get into Matthew Lewis territory of a bunch of writhing, like, sexy girls, and the monk has to be like, "Oh, yes, no."
Yes, this is the first time we've seen that, right? Where it's like a challenge, right? And
the sexuality is used to kind of.
And also, it's interesting to note that he cheats as well in this version, right? Because the monk claims that he hasn't lost the battle.
Right. He only did.
Yes.
But she grabs his dick, doesn't she?
She grabs his boner.
Yes.
But what's interesting about that to me is to go back to earlier versions which we watched, not for this one, but for the last episode. This was the first time since I think the Korean version maybe, where it wasn't spelt out, but and they don't mention it, but it was very similar to, if you remember in the Korean version, the meddling monk turned out to have actually been the black snake in disguise.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I got that feeling. They don't mention it, but it felt very much like that here, right?
Yeah. I think you could well be right.
We can wait for Darren to return, I think.
Do we know where he's gone? Off to?
I assume it'll be toilet duties.
Oh, right. Yes, yeah. We'll just let people watch us sit here in silence.
I'm making the time map of where to cut it, which I'll then forget to do. And so,
of course, you will.
Now is the time to tell me the story of how you fiddled with a child this week, Nick.
Yeah. So that didn't happen, and you most certainly will cut that comment.
Go on, spill the beans.
No, there's no beans to spill.
You've already spilled your beans. Oh, that wasn't very long.
No.
1 minute. There we go. I'll cut that minute.
No, sorry, that was a cat emergency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my cat was puking right by the door.
Oh shit. Okay, all right.
So I had to move the cat and
You cleaned up the very quickly.
Yeah, toilet paper, bathroom next door. It's gone in the toilet. I flushed the toilet. I ran back in.
The puke, not the cat, I hope.
Not currently the cat, although maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't. Yeah, I had to go and.
No, that's fine. Yes. So yes. So yeah, and so I think when this film gets into its final stuff with the flood and everything, I think that's when this version comes into its own. Then, right? Like I said earlier, that's when it gets quite moving, actually.
Yeah.
And it becomes quite a angry little film, actually, in its way. Like, it's odd. I feel it has a cumulative power that brings it all. Whereas earlier in the film, like I said, now and again it lost me or something. But I feel as if this ending is strong enough that it has a cumulative power that raises this to. I think this might be one of Choi Hark's best films, or better films at least, because a lot of these other films have great moments, but they let you down overall. I'm thinking like when we were talking about We Are Going to Eat You, for example, or something like that. But this, I think this is one of his more again. We've talked before about how we might have been a bit snotty and may have to go back and rewatch some Choi Hak things. But going by memory, a lot of his films didn't quite live up to it. Like they were all, or they had good moments, but this one, this is one of the ones that doesn't disappoint for me. So that's why I think it's one of the better Choi Hak films.
Yeah, I kind of half agree with you on that. So I think that this film is mostly spectacle. I don't think Choi Hak's got that much to say in the film. If you compare it to, it's not a fair comparison. You compare it to something like Shanghai Blues or Peking Opera Blues.
I see. This is where I'm embarrassed to say I have gaps in. I've seen neither of those films, and I understand that they might actually be.
Well, there's one particular scene I can think of in Peking Opera Blues that you particularly like.
All right.
You can talk to me about that after you've seen it. But anyway, but yeah, it's so yeah, for sure he's got something to say, and for sure he's definitely grinding the gears of, the holier than thou priesthood getting taken down. So that's there for sure.
It's funny because Clive and I just recently watched multiple versions of The Monk.
Okay.
The Matthew Lewis. Have you ever read The Monk? It's a great book, actually. The book is probably the best way to deal with it. Anyway, yeah, it's like the primo Gothic novel.
Yeah, it's the original, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, you know what I noticed in this was like this was a version where I feel like the whole it was just a scarf or it was just gauze thing felt like it was lifted right out of the one we just talked about.
Yeah.
And because that hasn't shown up in any other version, but suddenly I felt like there was a lot of the 78 version in this.
Yeah,
the scarf's in one of the earlier ones.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, and it's also difficult to judge whether it's just that it's been left out and then suddenly it's left in.
Right.
So we're not quite sure. Yeah.
Right.
But that's part of all the fun of the fair, right? Is trying to figure out the connections and.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. Excuse me. I disagree with Clive on, Choi Hak is trying to give us some sort of distinct message with this film. I think if that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I felt as if there was. It felt kind of quite angry. Not as angry as Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind.
No.
Not that angry.
No,
but it felt as if there was something there.
Yeah, I mean, Choi Hak is definitely, he's definitely poking the bear. As far as the sort of Buddhist priest stuff goes. But I did feel that this film was mostly an extravaganza for for your sort of Chinese New Year audience or your holiday audience. I
think it might be what you end up with when it's a hybrid of both those things, right? I think.
Yeah, no, agreed.
And maybe almost by accident, I think it kind of, like I said, cumulatively works.
Right.
It's worked for me. I
was
really
surprised.
rather liked GreenSnake, and I'd be keen to. I can imagine me watching it again. It's an odd film to, you usually think of something a bit more kind of weighty or something to say this about, but it's kind of one of those films that oddly will change with me as I get older and rewatch, even though in some ways you're quite right. It is a bit of kind of fluff, kind of, but there's something there. I don't know why really, but there's something about it I connect with, I have to say.
There's a line that surprised me. It's quite near the end. It's when, as in almost all versions, we have our scholar kind of kidnapped by the monks and forcibly taken away from Whitesnake. And he shouts like, "I love the secular world. I love it." And I was like, that's a really specific, again, irreligious thing to kind of to say in your dialogue. So it was, yeah. I did find the fake baby, like that was straight out of Train Spotting, very distracting.
That was really, because that was just a rubber fetus.
It was just a rubber baby.
Just
and
like
it was like
wobbling around. It's
yeah,
a big important scene where she's lifting it above the water.
yeah.
Rubber.
I was like, could they like just not have found an actual baby? It was like it reminded me so much of that horrible rubber animatronic thing in Crawling Along the Roof in Train Spotting. I was like,
it just looked fake to me. It just looked like
right,
that's like a CPR doll for babies or something.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But then it ends with GreenSnake like putting two swords through the scholar, right? Yeah. And that is, I was quite surprised and like, holy shit, like that's
and a whole bunch of dead monks too.
Yeah. So it definitely has an apocalyptic kind of yeah.
But she does that, doesn't she? She says something like, "Well, you belong with him now, with her now," because Whitesnake is drowned by that.
Right, and then they leave the baby with the monk in this version as well. So like, you take care of the baby. You've wrecked this relationship.
That's why I find it interesting. Is it is this kind of weird moral mess, right? Because it's also the first time. I mean, obviously it's been alluded to in other versions, but this is the first time it's put front and center that there's a whole shitload of collateral damage from that flood. And
yes,
that this squabble between them has got out of hand in a similar way. You know, you read about, when the Greek gods come down from Mount Olympus, meddle with humans, right? It's their petty squabbles.
It's messy,
on the mortal world, right? So, so I'm not saying it quite, but I just like that it hints at, because for me that's when this film, this story gets interesting, is when it's on that kind of mythical plane, I suppose.
To be fair, Love of Whitesnake does exactly the same thing.
Yep.
So there's a whole debate, isn't it, when she's in the beam of the bow. Well, you can't be set free because of all the priests and all the innocents that were killed.
Right.
When you
but like you said, that's a bit more light-hearted, isn't it? In that version, I mean.
Well, no, that's in the pathos bit at the end. Isn't it?
That is. I mean, it is pretty sad, but yes.
I don't think the pathos bit is as effective as it is here. It's not as impactful.
Okay.
There's a sunset with a sad child.
More restrained. Let's put it that way. It's more restrained, which depending on your point of view might be better. I don't know, but I this is one of the few times where I appreciate the
operatic nature of it all.
Of
right.
Because in general, I'm more of an old school guy than the amped up 90s wires.
Michael Bay.
But every now and again, if it's done right, then I can, credit where credit's due. Tip of the hat. You did that well, sir.
No, I like them both on their own merits.
Right.
All right. So are we? Do we have anything else to say about this, or are we on to a Phantom of Snake?
Phantom of Snake.
It is.
I like the
otherwise known as. Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, you go.
No, I was going to say, otherwise known as someone without the budget tries to mash up Blade Runner with the Hunger.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes occasionally successful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I love the opening credit that just says music, yes. And I was like, because my first thought was like, well, I don't think yes did the music to this. And I was like, no, maybe it's just like, yes.
There is music.
There is music.
But yes, thankfully it's not yes.
No, it's fucking didgeridoo craziness.
Didgeridoo music, yes.
Didgeridoo drone.
This must be the first time that it's Black and GreenSnake this time, right? Apparently.
Yes.
Have been given a didgeridoo theme every time they're on screen.
And I quite liked it. The droning nature of it.
It made me laugh every time it started up. It actually made me laugh. Oh, here we go. Now we've got to watch these two coked up catwalk models kind of just wander
around.
Like they've stepped at the beginning. You see the two of them like walking through the city for the first time. I'm thinking, fuck. Director Joe How Wing Choi, he's been watching a whole bunch of Jean Roland movies, isn't he? Just before he directed this, like, very fucking Jean Roland. This is the guy who also made Hong Kong Showgirls, by the way, which has me and Darren's favorite Diana Pangdang in it.
I haven't seen that one. Is it good?
I don't know. I haven't seen it either, but I will be watching it because it's Hong Kong Showgirls and it's got Diana Pangdang. He's in it as well, isn't he, Joe How Wang Choi? He plays like the main, not the main detective, but the chief of police or something. Yeah.
Who's always telling him to like solve the case by next week, for God's sake.
Yeah. Or the DA's gonna bust my ass. So yeah.
Yes. But I'll say about our snakes in this one, the whole way that they lean into each other, it makes sense in that kind of like, oh well, I guess they need to conserve body warmth because they're reptiles, like that stuff. It worked for me, and they were just kind of weird and slutty and all like on ketamine or something like that.
Cecilia Yip and the lovely Jade Lung from the Black Cat film.
Yes.
Very breathy. I think they've both got long COVID.
It's very breathy, isn't it?
Really struggling for breath. There's such a weird. There's like scenes of them walking down the street, and it's just. I tell you, this film. I mean, what I wrote down was actually, it's almost, and I will emphasize almost, hypnotically bad at times, but mostly just a bit shit, to be honest. But
I have
more
time for this than you, Clive. I have no idea why, and I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. But for some reason, I found this very comfortable and soothing to watch.
Well, that's why I say
washed over me.
That's why I say almost hypnotically bad, because it did. But again, I found myself. I've just been staring through the screen for like 20 minutes. What have I been? And then,
not a lot actually fucking happens.
The thing happens.
Oh no! It's very it's very minimal.
Which I should, again, it's if the dosage was just a little bit, again, to compare with Jean Roland or Jess Franco or something like that, depending on the dosage or even your mood or something, maybe if I'd watched this film on a different day, I might have gone with it.
I watched it quite late at night each time I watched it too, which I think helped. By myself in the dark, and that definitely added. But I mean, we should also say, in fairness, I would love to see this in a not like 250 megabyte VCD rip that is like watching a film through strained green digital gravy.
It's quite
black was kind of green pixely, wasn't it? I think the Jean Roland and especially Jess Franco actually comparison works.
Yes, but I don't know if it's a deliberate homage though. I think it's just like
no, it's accident. It's obviously accidental. I can see where he's going with it. He's going with kind of an alien creature, like snake spirit or two snake spirits, three snake spirits, have come into this kind of noirish kind of neon Hong Kong.
So I guess it's worth mentioning that this
from Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yes, This is the first version that we've seen, obviously, that attempts to update it to contemporary times, right? And there's a beautiful shot early in the film that has this kind of a forced perspective of this kind of like neon skyscraper and them kind of staggering into frame and they're drugged out. And I was like, that's cool. It worked for me. It was beautiful, and that didgeridoo drone. I was like, fuck yeah.
The snake sluts fell to earth.
Yeah, exactly.
It is that, and that's why you excuse it, right? You excuse it to some degree because it's got this kind of lethargic rhythm to it, right? Because you've got the two snake girls doing nothing apart from either walking around some neon lit streets or just lying around talking kind of laconically.
Yeah,
you know?
Jade Lung does really.
In their words, practically.
Jade Lung really nails the looking confused at whatever's going on. Thing as well. He does a lot of that.
I'll tell you what annoyed the fuck out of me
Mm-hmm.
was and distracted and totally ruined the snake look. Was these ridiculous fucking feather boas?
Yeah,
Oh, to me, it just it reinforced the catwalk kind of
right. Although I liked their sequin dresses because the sequins made sense as a kind of scaly, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they did look like they'd come over on holiday from Japan where they'd just recorded something for M's video about sperm drinking club girls or something like that. They had that exact look.
Right. Pupils dilated out to here. Yeah.
And that's the thing is I would be okay with this if it built to something.
Yes,
but it
definitely doesn't.
So the ending is because they obviously had no money, right?
Yeah.
The ending is they're in some fucking warehouse and there's a tree. Someone's moved a tree in there and there's a snake hanging off it. And then this massive fucking conversation that's meant to be like metaphysical. And it's just some pretty badly acted dialogue in front of a snake on a tree. And that's it. That's the end of the film.
More or less. There is the scene where they're driving away at the end. And I mean, so I guess we should briefly say this. So there is a police investigation run by a guy called Jimmy Wang, who is
this is Jimmy Wong, right?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, but is his name in the movie not also though Jimmy?
Yes, almost everyone in this film has the same name as their
actors.
Yeah, because there's like a GG and a Bobby and a
John was my favorite credit on the Hong Kong movie news. Oh yeah, John's in this.
All right,
good old John.
Glad we could pinpoint that one.
Yeah.
He's not in anything else apparently. Oddly enough, actually, the one thing that did, because she kind of jumps out for being, easy on the eyes, is Peggy Lamb, right, as the assistant to the expert,
who turns out to be
Michael Tong.
Yeah.
She's not in much of anything else at all. I think she's like one other thing. I thought, a surprise because she's got the looks.
I know she's cute. Yeah. But yeah, so there's he's doing this. I do love his like sad sack bunch of like underlings or whatever they are. His team when he goes in, and he's like, well, he's just been given he's been yelled at by the boss, and he's like, well, anything to report? And one guy's like, it's my birthday.
Yeah, let's go get
okay.
Yeah, there's
great.
the female cop who fancies him. No, it's all bollocks. I mean, it's the police investigation stuff is just
it's completely meaningless.
They're all cops. They're terrible cops.
Yes.
There's like
and then you've got
a whole spate of murders happening apparently, and they just basically turn up in crime scenes and go,
yeah. I love at like the second or third crime scene where they're there, and then the expert herpetologist is also there, who just he's walking by and he's like, "Ooh, that looks like a snake bite." I know.
He's just walking past on the street, isn't he?
Yeah. Because and he becomes
my
a character.
Card. If you've got any interesting snake fossils that might be something.
If you've got any questions about herpes, ask me. I know.
Yeah, because he wears leather or vinyl pants. Because he's a pretty fucking hip.
He's like bleach blonde, spiky hair, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like
he disappears like Dracula as well, doesn't he? Just. Actually, what surprised me is looking this up on the Hong Kong Movie Database. There's only like 3 or 4 reviews, but like most of them a fucking smash hit review.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Someone loves this film. At least 2 or 3 people think it's some kind of like. It's weird. They seem to have seen like a David Lynch film or something. Whereas this is clearly not. It's clearly not coming from. It might accidentally resemble, but this is clearly supposed to be a commercial thriller.
Right.
It's not trying.
It's supposed to be Lost Highway.
Yeah, it's not trying to be arty and weird.
Oh, I disagree. Actually, I think there is some.
I don't think so. I think it's just
art house in this.
I think it's just a failed thriller. Like it's not.
No, I mean I think Darren, when you said Blade Runner and you said The Hunger, that I absolutely see that.
But then again, The Hunger's a very commercial film.
Of course it is. Yeah, The Hunger's a fucking music video.
Yes.
Right. But I was sort of like, again, that the didgeridoo drone, the kind of tangerine dreamy soundtrack, and then the fact that I started to see Blade Runner not just because of the neon cityscape, but also the snake, right? There's the stripper who has the snake, and there's the whole snake scale part in. And it all started to kind of haze in my mind.
I have to admit, I've still not get even when you mentioned it at first, and you both seem to have picked up it. So I'm not saying it's not there, but even now, after you having, I'm still not seeing Blade Runner.
Any Blade Runner there? Okay.
No.
It's right there. It says definitely weird Blade Runner-y vibe.
Yeah.
Well, no, I believe you.
If you haven't seen Blade Runner, switch off now, right? Because I'm going to do a spoiler.
Okay.
But there is a character in there who doesn't know they're a snake.
Oh, yes.
So that would be Blade Runner-y as well.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah.
So I'm standing by my Blade Runner.
No. I'm not disputing it. It's just it didn't enter my brain at all. But clearly, both of you, without having conferred with each other, came up with it.
Yeah,
it's there clearly.
But again, it's for me. It was more the kind of the neon, the kind of. I don't even want.
The whole film was shot at night, virtually. The whole film, like I get that choice of constantly making sure that everything is.
Well, because of the murky VCT as well, it looks like it was shot at night, like during a blackout as well. Like,
right.
I'm sure the real one was a lot more shiny than that. Yeah. Right.
I did also like the intimation that like the moon, like what was going with the phases of the moon and they're cramping.
Don't they? Yeah.
Like there's these amazing scenes where like they're in the washrooms, like when she's in the washroom and the other like the cop girl friend or whatever is, and then she's just like writhing against the like sink in some sort of weird agony ecstasy, and that shows up multiple times. We get these and we get the didgeridoo. As I said, I don't know why I like this, because really I shouldn't have enjoyed this as much as I did.
We all seem to have the same basic takeaway: is this film is essentially rubbish, which we all seem to have a certain affection for.
Yeah.
It's an odd one. Yeah,
I'm never watching it again.
No.
But the thing is, I'm not throwing it away either, though. I'm keeping my copy because I can imagine one night when I have insomnia, I might be in the mood for Phantom. It might be just what I want.
2 o'clock in the morning. I can definitely see.
Weird didgeridoo catatonic.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like the novelty of it, because it is a novelty. Because you could, it's like the other comparison I made was Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
Right, fish out of water in a modern day setting, in a very cynical modern day setting as well. And there's something of this kind of, snakes rock up in a city, snake demons or snake spirits rock up in a city, don't really know what to do, so they just end up being weird goth girls with feather.
Actually, it's interesting you do. now that you say it, the man who fell to earth thing is there, because much like in that film, how he gets contaminated by humanity and alcohol and stuff like that, there is something of that. Like, they've come here just to take a look, and obviously they cut the bit out where they got addicted to drinking sperm in a disco, but some things happened to them along those lines. That's corrupted them, isn't it? It's corrupted them. And fuck, we're reading way too much into this.
No, but what we're reading into it is what I think the director was trying to do.
Maybe.
Which he failed at.
The other thing that's worth mentioning as well is, if I'd have seen this, well, number one, if I'd have seen this film when it was new, or if I'd have seen this film, let's say if I'd have just seen this film not as part of this little cluster of Whitesnake films, there's a good chance I might not have put two and two together and pegged it as a Whitesnake or GreenSnake film. Like, the connection's pretty...
Although it's fun, I noticed, like, I was, because, you're looking, like, I was looking for where are the things that may be connected to the versions we've seen before. And one of them is, interestingly, when he goes to their house and he tries to take these photographs of it, and then he brings them back and they all turn out blank because it's not really there in that way. I have a
fucking clue what that was about.
But I assumed it was the same as, like, all the other versions, where their home is not exactly... It's not a real space. It's a space that they've projected with their minds or whatever. And so I was like, okay, that's that part of the myth, but in a modern setting. Maybe.
I'm glad we watched this. In a weird way, this was my highlight of just because it was just so interesting to ponder what the fuck what it's trying to be, or
and strangely, I don't hate it.
No, neither do
That's
I.
the thing. So I'm glad I watched it. It's a shit film, but I don't hate it.
It wore me down. I'm there. And just as I'm about happened again, and the repetition just, I don't know, like, it hypnotized me, or it almost hypnotized me.
To be fair to it, though, to be fair to the director, he is actually trying to hypnotize you.
See, that's the thing. I don't know. I think this is the difference, and this is what we could argue about all day, right? I think what you're saying is this might be a deliberate ploy to create, like, a dream-like, like a tangerine.
I think that is what he's trying to do.
Whereas I'm coming from the point of view is, I think he wanted to make an exciting thriller and accidentally got possessed by the ghost of Jess Franco, Jean Roland.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more with you, Darren. I feel like that there's an intentionality about the slowness and the weirdness and the kind of the musical choices. Like, it all, to me, lends this idea that he was looking to create this weird sensation of dreamy whatever the hell it is.
Ultimately, what is interesting about it is that we don't quite know, and it is in that netherworld, and that is what makes it interesting. I think is that it's such a bizarre prospect, either as an art film or a more commercial kind of thing. It doesn't fit either category.
One of the things, way back when we first talked about the first Whitesnake films for Shaw, I mentioned that I thought there was this interesting feature of, like, in all these versions, our main character falls in love with this person who has hidden something about themselves, right? And is being totally honest about what they really are. And then, and then
like you on this podcast, so do you pretend to be
yes, exactly. And so but this version is interesting because it even, like, when we finally, we find out one character is a snake, they appear to be a male snake because they suddenly speak with a male voice, and I was like, it was just, it got into that aspect, or that weird, interesting overlap of this whole
I think that was supposed to be, again, to my point of how this is kind of, I think, almost by accident, is I think that bit is supposed to play as like a twist, right? But because it's so catatonic, it doesn't last. So you assume the whole film when they're talking about hooking up with their brother-in-law who's you think they're talking about the professor character.
Yes, yes. And I agree. And then I think
it turns out to be Peggy Lamb, who's actually a man. But because it's played out in the way it plays out, it's not the it's like it only kind of dawns on you a bit. Hang on now.
I will say one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, and I think one of the most absolutely erotically charged scenes, is when she first shows up and she starts rubbing that giant snake.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, ooh. Yeah.
You see, viewers, he's a sleazebag.
Yes, yes. I'm a very, very open-minded fellow.
Yes.
So
we jump forward.
Also. Who puts a snake in their toilet?
Yes, that is a good and a boa constrictor, no less.
Yeah, exactly. One of the most deadly snakes. And then doesn't mention it. Oh, sorry.
To a guest.
Forgot to tell you. There's a boa constrictor in the toilet. So
yes, Jet Li then.
11 years later, and I still couldn't quite get my hat on about this, but I think this is pretty much mainland all the way, right? I think this one.
Yeah.
Seems like it,
yeah. Yes, and it's we talked about him earlier. It's Ching Soo-dong.
Yeah. The return of Ching Soo-dong.
Yes, and depending on where, because I'll be very interested to see what you fellas made of this, because I was slightly surprised so he's either blotting his copybook here or not. He also did the choreography. Sorry. One of the screenwriters as well has one of my all-time favorite anglicized Chinese names of Charcoal Tan, which is brilliant. Of all the names, I mean, I thought Bo Wang was a good one, or isn't there Batman Hung as well, right? But Charcoal Tan just takes just didn't even choose an animated object to name themselves.
That's a man who takes the sun well.
Warm. Scaffoldingly. Charcoal Tan. Brilliant. Right. So where do we want
I'm going to launch myself into this, right?
Go for it.
All right, you go.
I'm launching myself onto this.
Okay.
I kind of like this one.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with you, Darren.
Okay. Yeah.
Weirdly enough, and I didn't expect that.
No.
Okay.
This had
explain yourself, gents.
Written all over it.
Well.
Okay.
Like is maybe a bit strong. Let's put it this way. For what it is, there was warning signs, right? So I started. I expected the overabundance of CGI, right? I expected that,
right?
But then when there's a fucking talking mouse, a rabbit, and a talk,
yes,
it was like
when Stuart Little shows up, and
I was like,
I nearly spit out what I was drinking when those characters came on, and I did then, like, as it went on a minute or two, I was like, oh, hang on, is this a weird callback to the animated Japanese version that we watched?
Yeah.
I was like, because
I will confirm that as well. Nick did almost spit my jism back in my lap when we were watching this scene.
It was, yes. It was hard to watch the movie from his lap, I have to say.
That's why you didn't like it. You were missed half of it.
That's why you've got mirrors all around. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I wondered if like, what was that one called? Panda and
the Magic Serpent. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I suddenly was like, oh, hang on.
I don't think it.
It could be. I never know. I mean, that film was a beloved hit for children across Asia. It could be a bit of a nod to it, or it could just be them deciding
what
we
this,
need
you
to
know,
make
what this
it
felt
more
like to me
family
was,
friendly, right?
it felt to me like all of those recent Disney remakes of their own animated films in live action with tons of CGI, like the Beauty and the Beast thing, and that they're doing now. I was like, oh, this really feels like that Disneyfied.
It's a Disneyfication of that sort of cinema, isn't it? It's Chin Dong or the studio deciding that we're going to do a wuxia legendary Chinese stuff,
Yeah.
but with talking animals.
Can you stick some talking animals, and also can you totally desexualize it as well, please? Like take all the writhing lesbian crap out of it.
I don't know.
No, I don't agree with that, because we get the Fox Girls, which
the Fox Girls, yes, the Fox Girls.
I started watching this with an eye to like, could I show this in class? Like, is this something that I could show to to kids? And ultimately I came down, because once the freaking talking animals showed up, I was like, okay, what's happening? But then when we got to the writhing Fox Girls, and we got to one of our monks deciding to hang himself, and I was like, there's these moments, these beats in the movie that don't make sense for a children's movie.
Oh, I was gonna. All right, children's movie. I was wondering where you were going with that, because we were talking sexual and you were talking hanging.
No, I was saying, like, at first I was like, I just thought, yeah, it seemed like it might be the kind of thing I could show the kids as like an example of like.
No, I understand. I know what you're saying. And then the hang itself, and you got a hard on. But yes, the fox bits. Yes, I forgot about the fox bits, but certainly the Eva Huang Charlene Choi, who of course used to be one of the twins, right, of the twins effects films and all that. I don't think that was very sexy at all, which is a fucking shame, because I would have liked to have seen Eva Huang in if they'd have GreenSnaked it up a bit, because she's got something a bit wrong about her as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, but there's a decent amount of semi CGI, but it's covered by CGI, right?
Yes, CGI snake boobs.
But it just
I was getting on with the CGI.
That worked for you, Darren. Yes,
it would, except it looks more like they're wearing like fishing waders that go on a bit too long. Like,
yeah, I'm still okay with that.
But you know what I mean? It's like they've. I think the sexuality of those scenes is a bit more of a mirror of what we're bringing to it than it is. They've definitely toned it down, and let's put it that way. If not all the way, they're
definitely going for the family market. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And yet I do feel like
in for the dads.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, you might be right. Oh fuck! I've got to take little charcoal along to see this.
Oh fuck it! Homemade tomato wants to come along as well.
I gotta take them along. Oh, never mind. At least Eva Huang and Charlene Choi are in it wearing them fishing waders. And they'll be in the wank bank for one later on tonight. After little charcoal's gone to bed. in the barbecue.
Yeah. But I mean, I did see this as having more of GreenSnake in it than I would have expected in some ways, though. I do think, because we've got back to our version of the monk, who is very much a martial artist and flies around the place and has magic powers and all that stuff, right?
We mentioned Grumpy Jet Li as well, but I have to say that's not necessarily a bad thing. Something I've always quite liked about Jet Li actually is he's quite different from the other Hong Kong action stars. Is he tends to, apart from the obviously he can do a lot more physically, he's a bit more in the stoic kind of always has been a bit more in the stoic Clint Eastwoody kind of thing, isn't he? And I actually quite like that about Jet Li. Like, you don't really get him. There's a few films where he's done a little, like he's done a bit of sub Jackie Chan stuff, but clearly early on he's figured out that doesn't suit me, right? I'm a
Yeah.
better
Yeah, I
doing
mean, he's born play hung, isn't he? So
yeah, he's better doing the stoicy kind of thing. So I quite like see he's a bit comparable to like Harrison Ford or something. He's quite a grumpy.
Going into Kung Fu for a minute as well. I think that Jet Li is a grumpy master.
Right.
Like a very grumpy master, like he is here. Is a new thing that I would quite like to see a bit more of. So I'd quite like to see Jet Li as the new Sam Seed.
Yeah. Oh well, that's a bit too comical, or like a harsh Shaolin taskmaster.
Or Lu Jialang or something. Yeah.
Because it would seem coming full circle as well, right? To basically where it came from, which is basically a Shaolin temple, right? Actually, I was quite interested about. I started conjuring up this whole thing in my head about. I had no idea how much of a connection to reality this would have, but I have the idea of Jet Li almost like a communist spy who sent out from mainland China and with some kind of weird plot to it isn't fully thought through, but I quite like this idea that he was giving his marching orders, and that's how he became a film star, and then he got corrupted, and he went to Hong Kong, and then he went to Hollywood.
Well,
now he's come full circle again, and he's
him and Nixon, isn't there?
Huh?
Sorry, I was interrupting you.
And now he feels almost like he's a double agent, and he's gone back, right? And anyway, sorry, that's the flight of fancy that I thought would make for an interesting film. Although, who would play Jet Li?
Yeah. Move on from that, I think.
All right, that's fair enough.
Yeah, as I was saying before, this version, like GreenSnake, has him as being this Ghostbustery type of figure who's traveling around. We see other demonic forces that he's kind of sucking into his little hand bowl, and then placing them in a containment mirror giant thing back at the pagoda, right, and kind of shooting their energies in.
Yes,
like a portal, isn't it? It's like some sort of portal. That you
yeah. Well, it's interesting. So the new wrinkle they do here, I suppose, is that his assistant, as played by Wen Zhang, so he gets teamed up with, again, a very petulant, jealous GreenSnake, which is a big connection to GreenSnake. But also he gets bitten by like vampires or something, some kind of bat demons.
Bat demons.
And so he turns into a gargoyle, or Bob Todd, if you prefer. By the end,
99% of gargoyles do.
That's a known fact.
Yes.
So that was an interesting new wrinkle. I don't think we've seen that before, have we?
No.
That's brand new.
Yeah.
But I like that. I really liked that addition because I really liked that character.
I like that idea.
Yes. Yeah. He was a sympathetic, and it definitely through Jet Li's version of the fastidious monk. Like he really had to struggle with his hard and fast opinions about things. Like this one gave him more growth. I guess it gave Jet Li's version of the monk more chance to reflect on how strict he was being.
Yeah, and also he's like the Deus Ex Machina of the whole fucking film.
Right. Yes.
He swoops in and rescues GreenSnake.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it gets...
Well, the thing is, I believe by the tone I think you were going to go into complaining about the CG, right?
Yes. Yeah, that last section is the hardest part for me.
And I just want to say, because of that as well, because as a result of them kind of, there's no rules. These by the time we get to the flood and the big ending, I think this is the biggest we've ever seen the snakes, right? Like they're fucking huge in this version.
Yes.
It's like a kaiju kind of movie.
Yeah. People ride in them and they're like a pinprick.
And Jet even becomes Jonah, right? He goes inside the snake at one point.
Yes.
Yeah,
but not in that way.
No, not in the way that filthmonger Nick was singing about at the end of last.
Yes.
show.
Yes. Exactly.
See, we're slowly outing you episode by episode. Right. Yeah, so go on then. Go on your rant about CG, because I know you want to.
No, it's just like that was, I mean, because parts of the film are attractively shot and have a certain amount of realism to them. But yeah, by the time we get to that section, it's just all green screen all the time, and it's weightless and affectless for me. Like I lose, and then it's ropey CGI too, right? When Batfellow is flying around and picking the monks out of the water, it just looks pretty shit.
And the rat attack led by Stuart Little, you mean?
Oh yes. I like that though for some reason. That was all right.
I like that. Yeah.
It's interesting as well, considering. I mean, this always sits weirdly with me in terms of, so obviously communist China, or whatever you call China nowadays. I'm not sure if communism really. I don't know if that word really works for what modern China is, right? It's kind of a weird.
No, it's a real politic version for sure.
It's very odd. We need to coin a new phrase for it, I think.
Right.
But what's interesting to me is how obviously you can't have ghost films. You're not supposed to have ghosts, and certainly you're not allowed to have religion, other than it seems Buddhism is permissible. I mean, it doesn't shy away from that. I mean, there's even an intervention, right? But it's like the merciful Buddha actually intervenes towards the end.
Yes.
I was kind of surprised that surprised and not surprised, I suppose, because I've seen it before. But it's interesting how that seems to get a pass somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's always the possibility, of course. I don't know. I've never read about it, so I don't think it's the case. But this could be the Hong Kong cut. And maybe in the mainland version, there's a quick added bit where Buddha turns out to be like, I don't know, Nazi or something.
I mean, it's not a very religious film, though, really, is it? I mean, it's a fantasy film. That's how you would market it if you were in China.
Yeah, but it's just
going to have magic swords and dragons and shit,
But towards the very, very end, there's a definite.
Oh yeah, he becomes holy, and there's always.
I mean, she even mentions the Amitabha, right? And I'm just wondering if maybe the Chinese version is maybe slightly differently edited, or I'm not sure.
Oh no, I was going to say by this time Hong Kong is China, but that's 10 years ago, 12 years ago, so that's no, probably not. Yeah.
Right. So bringing it around to what me and Darren were saying. I mean, I'll say what I was. I'll see if Darren feels the same or if his feeling is a little bit different. So for me, with all that in mind, I know it's going to be weightless CGI bollocks, and again, it's 2011. Badly dated CGI bollocks, and the talking animals and all that. For what it is, it's surprisingly all right and not annoying, quite enjoyable. I had quite a good time with it, and as long as you know what you're getting. I mean, we've watched on this show before, right? When we did all those fucking CGI fest versions of
yes,
those were a lot more of a chore to sit through for me than this, and I don't think that's a thematic thing. I think, Ching Sadong's done probably the best job he could have done given the ingredients he was given, I would say. So this
is not some kind of snake version of Stockholm syndrome where you've spent so long.
No, honestly, this could be. I was expecting this to be much, 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 much worse and much more hard to see.
Yes, I wasn't grinding my teeth the whole time. It wasn't agony by any stretch. It just, of the four, to be honest, of all the ones we watched, this is probably my least favorite. I would say. I'm trying to think if there's another one that.
What? Not the one before.
No.
No, we established we all like PhantomOfSnake. Remember that?
Yeah.
For some weird reason.
Yeah.
If
I had to make a ranking of all of the versions we watched to date, this is probably my. Which is not to say I hate it. It's fine.
But I'm with you. I would probably, as stupid as it sounds, I would probably rewatch PhantomOfSnake before I rewatched this. Weirdly enough.
Okay, well, I would rewatch this. I would have fun rewatching this. I probably never want to see PhantomOfSnake again. I probably aren't. I'm probably not going to watch GreenSnake again. I enjoyed this more than I did GreenSnake on the second viewing.
But was second viewing, right? So that's the caveat.
Yeah. But I had fun with this, and I'm grinding an axe that I ground on this show before, but I can tell the difference between Chin Siu Dong and Choi Hark on these two films, because they're both bits of fluff, right? They're both disposable. Michael Bay is an insult to both of them.
You see, I would say GreenSnake's weightier than this thematically. There's no anger in this. There's no angry man.
No, there's no anger, but what's there instead of anger is humanity. So Chin Siu Dong is taking care of the characters and is trying to make you feel something on an emotional level, rather than Choi Hark trying to insert some anger, not as an afterthought, but trying to grind an axe in the middle of a feel-good film.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from saying that, and in general, I would agree with you. That would make sense as something Choi Hark would do. But for me, GreenSnake felt like a bit of an outlier where that wasn't the case. It feels a bit more authentic to me than other Choi Hark.
Yeah. No, I get it, but I think that Sorcerer and White Snake is a more sincere film than GreenSnake, because I think there is a vein of cynicism running through GreenSnake.
But it's heartfelt cynicism. Or you mean not you
well,
don't?
I mean commercial cynicism.
Right. Okay, I see it. Right. Cynicism
commercialism is obvious. Right. Yeah, but commercialism is obviously apparent in this film.
Right. Because
they fucking got Jet Li and they've got to do as many explosions as they possibly can to attract an audience.
Yeah.
But I feel that this film is actually trying to elicit some sort of emotional response from the audience in a genuine way, despite the fact there are fucking talking animals in it.
Yeah.
There's ridiculous CGI in it. There's too much spectacle. There's not enough wuxia stuff in it. But where it succeeds, I think it succeeds better than GreenSnake, if we're going to make that comparison.
Some of the destruction scenes towards the end as well that weren't fully CGI, and I was trying to figure out actually how much. Some of those are actually quite impressive, like some of the slow motion things with waves coming down mountains. And I'm assuming they must.
There's some really bad CGI in this as well.
As well, yeah, but there were bits where wasn't bad, and I was wondering, well, what's the difference? Like, did they have more time to work on that, or is that a physical effect to a certain? Did they use miniatures, or we forgot to mention the guest stars as well. There's one bit where, again, the House of Illusions thing, where they try some demons try and pretend to be, because the character in this was a herb picker, and it was basically an apothecary again. She
apothecary, surely.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah.
No, you said apothecary.
What is it?
Apothecary.
Chicken curry.
And chips.
Let's call the whole thing off. It's apothecary, is it? Yeah.
It is no. I didn't mean to call you out on the show there, but
Oh, no, but no, I just thinking about it. Anyway, he's one of them. He's a pharmacist. Yeah, he's a herb.
Yeah.
And
pharmacist.
she rescues him from joining, right? From not joining, from drowning, even from joining the legions of the drowned.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Although that he's only drowning because GreenSnake has impetuously pushed him into the lake.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he insists on doing the right thing and meeting her family right before they get married.
Oh, yes.
Some of the demons pretend to be
comedy. Yeah.
So we get cameos from Vivian Hsu, Miriam Young, Chapman Toh as the toad, and my favorite, Lam Sweat, is the chicken. Doesn't it? It's just actually quite funny. And what surprised me is the voice of the tortoise is director Chang Pu-soi, who made Shamo and Dog Bite Dog and the Monkey King and sequels. That's him as the voice of the tortoise for some reason.
Okay.
There we go.
Cool.
Yeah. So you did or you didn't enjoy this, Nick? I'm slightly confused.
No, I would say it was fine. No, I definitely didn't struggle to get to the end or anything like that. No, it was just that overall, of all the versions we watched, for me, it was the one that grabbed me the least.
But you were expecting the CGI extravaganza that it was, or were you not? Did you not know that's what it was?
No, I was, because we watched, as I said, because we did all those romance of the Three Kingdoms films, so I have a sense of what the drift that's happened in Chinese action films over the last two decades. But yeah, I don't know. It was just, I mean, it was weird. It was weird. Like, as I said, as soon as the CGI animals, in a way that it did perk me up, I was like, oh, okay, what's this then? Why?
We should mention that Nick is head of the Canadian Stuart Little fan club, so
yeah, well, that helped for sure.
Right. He's got a little badge. Right.
It's obviously made at the time Mulan or something came out, isn't it? Or Beauty and the Beast or fucking something. I don't keep track of the Disney
releases.
Yeah, but something obviously came out that had little talking animals in it that they were trying to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it did okay.
Or it might even be a mainland Chinese film that we don't know about as well.
Yeah.
That could be.
It does. No, it does smack Disney to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, they have been doing Disney rip-offs for long enough now that I'm wondering if they've started copying the copies.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, regardless, that is what it is. There we go. 2.5 blistering white snake chat for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So
that.
We better stop, shouldn't we? Because we've got some more things to talk about.
Let's draw a line under Whitesnake.
I feel like it's time to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're done. We're going to put a cap on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to put the pagoda on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to put it in a bowl.
Yeah.
Laser beam. And then lift the pagoda up with our bare hands and bung it under there.
Yeah.
So, until next time.
But feather boa, feather boa, feather boa, feather boa, feather boa.